This conference will now be recorded.
Patrick, would you like me to set us up while we're waiting for Don?
Sure, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on September 18th. Today is the weekly telecon for the Clean Network. And we jump into the presentation, which I happen to be the person giving. But there's Don. Don, can you hear us?
Sorry, I'm a minute or two late here.
It's all right. I hand it over to you, Don. I was just stepping in.
Welcome to the call, and we'll have Frank talking in a little bit. But before that, are there any announcements for the good of the order?
Don, would you mind announcing the thing that happened last Thursday?
Sure. The NSTA has released their position paper on teaching of climate science, and it is amongst their 30. It's finally here. I'll just like that. And both Frank and I were on the committee, and maybe some other folks on the call. And I think it looks pretty good. You've had a chance to take a look at it. I think Frank sent the announcement out
Yep.
on the list last week.
Yep. Blog entries and resources, but I think it'll be really interesting to see how it resonates with states and their implementation of NGSS and related standards.
Yes.
Congratulations, guys. I saw that run out and read it. It looks great. I'm sure that was a big achievement.
Yes, it did. It took a while, and it took a while. It took a while to write, and it took a while to percolate through the bureaucracy, but I think it came out pretty good.
Yep.
Agreed.
Jim here with kind of an announcement to folks of here in the Bay Area. We're now entering the season where there are most of the science festivals that happen. It's sort of maybe it's a new thing for Clean, but it's a whole nother genre of informal education. One of them is at the San Francisco Giants ballpark of 50,000 people. We know with the summit, there wasn't a lot that we were getting to the public. We did, but the science festivals are an opportunity to now go back out to the public as educators and make sure education has a play, because the public comes out to see us. Others who do that, especially in California, are more than welcome to be with us. We will have many booths. We'd love to have other climate educators, energy educators alongside us. It's a wonderful way to reach the public directly.
Great. Using my wait time. Hearing none, I will turn it over to Frank. Frank is going to be talking about he is, first off, the Clean co-chair and the NOAA Climate Education Coordinator, and he'll be presenting on accelerating climate action through education at the Global Climate Action Summit, which also happened last week. And there you go. Take it away, Frank.
Thank you. Can you guys see my screen there?
Yes.
Awesome. So this was a massive group effort. So even though my name is associated with it, I'm just the one who's speaking on behalf of this shared effort. And so, we're not going to necessarily get through all of it. There was a lot that went on last week and a lot of work that went before it. But this is a picture of one of the exhibits right across the street from the summit, which was, it took me a while to actually realize what that green neon was saying. I've never seen anybody do that. So I thought it would be a good, it's like, oh, wow. Wow, in California, it's a little different. So anyway, so this is principally going to be about an event that the Climate Change Education Partnership Alliance with Gail Scowcroft supported with NOAA Climate Program Office and others, But there were other events that we'll allude to. There was a lot, so we're going to just jump right into it. So, why aren't you advancing? Here we go. There we go. So, during the summit, there was an opening from an indigenous woman, and I mean, it was really nice that they honored the fact that we are on native land, and that invocation and invitation into that space was beautiful, but it was powerful, and the kind of setting the tone for what we were doing during the summit was really important. We also had similar work in our events, but I think it's always good to remember that type of honoring of tradition was really important. But one of the things I was struck with was there was an amazing presentation about what would it take to actually hit the target. But I think the summit was really about how do we accelerate, raise our ambition, take it to the next level, things of that nature. And there were really, really impressive talks, but talks like this one, which got center stage, first set of talks, and all the work that we do in this network was basically missing. What we in the education, community engagement, workforce development community see is really a key strategy to doing exactly what they're talking about in these slides. So we still have a lot more engagement to do and a lot more strategic prioritization with leaders like this. So I'm just highlighting that while we made tremendous progress last week, we still have yet to be considered a central strategy in the way that communities address climate change and its risks. So I just, being upfront with you that while progress is made, we still have a long way to go. So couple insights, and hopefully you can read this. One of the panels had a really interesting group of people. An investor, hedge fund investor from BlackRock, who's sitting, I'm going from the right to the left. Then the second person there was, besides the moderator, is the governor of New Jersey. We'll come back to him. Then the mayor of Poland, a leader in Oxfam, and the person all the way to the left is Kevin Johnson, the CEO of Starbucks. And why I focused on him is because some of the things we're learning in these sequence of conversations and events is that what he said there was, we're going to achieve this together. But then, and they made some amazing commitments, Starbucks did. And Jim, I'm thinking back to what you said about these science festivals, but also I think that what I was hearing is that we need to challenge these businesses to make what they're doing the point of intersection with their constituencies, their customers, the people that come and work with them. I just chose a random picture of a store in Starbucks. I don't see anything about going to 100% clean energy, making coffee the first sustainable agricultural product in the world, and transforming the way they do business within a very short period of time. Really, really bold ambition, but I don't see that here. And so I think there's an opportunity for people who have expertise in making things visible on this topic, which is a tricky topic. But then you come back to the governor of New Jersey. He's new, Philip Murphy, and he laid out a very ambitious wind energy target of 3.5 gigawatts of wind for the state by 2030. That's the most ambitious wind target in the country right now. But and it's really hailed as an amazing thing. But then think about, most likely all that technology is going to come out of somewhere in the harbor around New York City. I highlighted all the community colleges that are there. I don't know if any of those community colleges have any job programs for training the 50,000 people who are going to do that work, or 4,000 people. I don't remember what the current number is, but there's a huge amount of people who are going to be involved in that massive technological enterprise. But if those community colleges aren't offering degree and certification programs to get those jobs, how are people going to get them? And how are you going to fulfill the commitment to really doing the jobs and doing the work while also becoming a low carbon economy? I just want to highlight for you some of those things that like I think our community is seeing. We're beginning to see them. We have a conversation later today with a lot of the leaders in New York City about this type of work, but we're still not there as a community. And I'm just signaling again, workforce development is a really important space, but we still have a lot more to do. But the key thing is people like CEOs and you know, governors, they're not really seeing what we do as a central strategy to keep achieving these yet. And I think that we still have yet to have a common understanding. So how did we get here? This new force of efforts really started back in, you know, Tamara Ledley was leading the collective impact work back, and it led to a meeting in the ESIP summer meeting back in 2016. In that meeting, we really started seeing the pivot to including climate action community leaders, people who are leading climate actions at a subnational scale, into educational enterprises and really exploring to be of support and how strong a support could the education enterprise be. And then we subsequently followed up in 2016 at AGU, and then followed up again with a process that led to the Collective Impact Summit last September. From that, we went to New Orleans, and part of AGU again, and really started solidifying this intersectionality between communities leading climate action like New Orleans, really doing ambitious work, and what could education in all its forms do. And out of that meeting, one of the most pivotal things that it solidified was the commitment to workforce development, people's jobs. That's the first place mayors, governors, county councils really resonate with the work we do, but it's not really what we do right now. So there's an interesting pivot that's going on potentially in parts of our community. But then, we had an event on the 11th. A number of people who are on the call here were there. And I think everything I've heard to date, it was a very important meeting because we also added the private sector, businesses, people who work with the private sector into this space. And I think that the bottom line that I have for this, for sharing it with the network, is that there's some interesting evolutions that are very important to our community that are occurring. Fulfilling that is going to be important, but I think we have to have a common understanding of is the community going into a place, and is it kind of orienting itself around a new strategy that really resonates with people who want to enjoy our support at a community scale. And I think the clear answer I got was yes. So I'm going to open it up in a little bit so that everyone can affirm what they heard as well. So I'm really happy that, you know, we have a good attendance today, and we also have a representation of other people who have different perspectives that were in the meetings. So we were hard stopped at 100 people. Couldn't have more than 100 people in the room. And these are two interns, that's Haley and Silas, who both helped us immensely. College students, one from Bates and one from Columbia, and they did an amazing amount of work to prepare for and then actually help us do this. And there will be a workshop report. Well, I'll show you where that's going to be. Something that Gail Scowcroft and I are beginning the process of doing, but their note-taking prepared us for that success. So, you know, in the event on the 11th, which is the principal focus of this, and James, again, or Jim, again, thank you for the photographs, because, you know, as being a co-facilitator and a co-leader of this effort, my ability to take photographs that really told the story was quite challenged. So again, thank you for the wonderful support. But, you know, the goal was to explore how could education work with business and community leaders to build social will, to build the capacity needed to address the ambitious targets of a zero emission a 2050 in line with Paris and a 1.5 degree world. Some efforts were even being more ambitious than that that were talked about at the summit last week. So, but we were looking at how do we do that. So, the supporters for this was really building on what we did last year. Clean was a central piece because we've also, for those of you who don't realize, we're actually building in Clean internship program to really expand the social capacity that we have and need to do this type of work, because we just don't have the staff or the budgets for this. I've seen some other events at the summit who had very sizable budgets. We did not, but we were able to pull off a very successful event. So the planning committee, we kind of mixed the planning committee up from last one in some key ways. Oliver from Somerville, Massachusetts, he leads their sustainability efforts in a small city just outside of Boston. We added Melinda Chase and Elena Sparrow to get an Arctic and tribal perspective, and then Christina Nicholson from the Gap, who leads sustainability efforts there, a leader in the in the private sector. So we were able to really ensure that we got all the key, what we think are the key elements of the strategy in the room, and we explored them through a series of panel discussions. So we'll get through there. So again, I got to call out our interns. They were amazing. They were incredibly important work. There's a lot of preparation and support during the event. So I think also bringing youth into the space and inviting them in and having them play a central role is critical, because the strategy centers around youth. So anyway, the two objectives that we were really exploring last week were, how can community engagement, workforce development programs assist communities? How can it? And can it? And some of it's we know that the answer is they can. Some of it is we're still exploring more. Other important piece of this work was we were also partnering and collaborating with another event and another team over on the 12th that we'll get to later. But there were different partners who were really San Francisco, Bay Area, and California focused that we invited into our event on the 11th to really deepen our understanding of what other programs that aren't really currently in the Clean network and in the known members of what we do, widening the circle with some intentionality, and that's really important here. But also this idea of community and business leaders working with us in a collaborative way, and what can we do that is valuable to them, and what are areas that they are challenged that actually might relate to what we do in our community. Turns out, if we are careful in how we discuss with each other, the answer is there's quite a bit. But it's the how we talk and how we listen that really is a central piece to whether or not we'll do it together. So in the first panel, this is a brand new approach for us. None of our groups have really gotten into the business sector or the private sector. And because that was a central piece of the Global Climate Action Summit, we were able to bring in some people, also being in San Francisco, because GAP's headquarters are in San Francisco. We were able to join a panel with Maura, Sasha, and Brent that was powerful, important, really good areas of what we have expertise in and what they have need in. And you'll see the details in the workshop report that are coming out. But I think that those of us who can kind of stretch what we do into areas that are new. I'll give you one example. Marta Kern joined us, who you know from EcoArts, and Patrick, you know her well. You work with her all the time. She had asked a question about what could the arts do with businesses on climate change, and they were invited in to engage businesses on the importance and the work through the arts in a lot of powerful ways, where imagine they have lunch time with 45,000 people. There are businesses that have lunchrooms that house 45,000 people. I can't imagine that, but okay. But you know, when they bring in NGOs to talk about important issues, they're usually at a table on the side, and very few people interact with them. Marta lit up like a Christmas tree because she knows, you know, instead of doing the installation out there, doing it with a business space, really could do effective engagement and in powerful ways, and that's an opportunity. But I think that that opportunity I just wanted to highlight is kind of the way you would do that is really different than the way we've been working to date. So I've said it a bunch of times, I'll probably say it some more, but I think that if we're really going to explore the power of these new partnerships, we're going to have to think and work in different ways in different places. Um, so, you know, and I think the work that Brent's doing both in domestically and in Asia opens up a lot of opportunities for how, and he spoke extensively about the workforce to do sustainable work in businesses. And they're setting up collaborations with the universities and colleges all over Asia to actually do the work that is called for in these transitions to low carbon and resilient futures. So just letting you know that there are new partners, new ways that I think we all need to learn from. So there's the panel, and to get these three people was no small effort. Really a successful, engaging, dynamic conversation. You know, people were very. You know, as a former teacher, to sit and watch people sit for a long time as facilitators, we were nervous. But I think for those who were there, besides myself, people were really dynamically listening intently in powerful ways, and I think that that's rare, and that was really the key. Um, so I mean, here's just a shot of the group of the 100 people who are really very much exploring this expanded space with us. And I think that everything I've heard is that this was an important advancement for our field to really look at that intersectionality. So, you know, then we moved into a resource matching where we had asked participants, regardless of what sector, what they had to offer and what they needed, whether they're private sector, NGO, education, or community leaders. And what we found was that effective communication strategies, workforce development skills, and community engagement models were really what they were looking for and what people had to offer. And so we will share all those post-its. There's this set, and then there's a set on the other side of the room that you're not seeing here, with the community, just so you can really see. But the thing that's important here is there were a lot of people in the room I've never met, because they were coming from all over the place to come to the summit. They also came to join us in the room. So this is, you know, I'd say, I don't know, maybe 20 people in the room were Clean Network members. That means there were 80 people that we've never worked with in one way or another, or one of us has worked with, but the community is not aware of their work. So there's a real opportunity for exploring and growing and understanding something wider. But then, you know, people were exploring them, but then also you can kind of get a little bit of the detail of these. But I think we all benefit from understanding more and more about each other's work, and there's more work than we're aware of. Every time I look, there's more impressive, important work, and I think that means we as a network provide a really central function in sharing and building that work. So as one of the co-chairs of Clean, I'm planning to mine this to set up as many of the weekly telecons for people who are new that you may not know. And there's some people we got to get to know better and deeper. So, you know, to have Reb sitting there with a representative of the California Science Teachers Association talking about this issue a day before the release of the NSTA position, and really exploring how those collaborations work, and is you know, just one example. But the woman sitting to the right of Reb is from the National Marine Sanctuary. So, you know, bringing new partners together and exploring them. So we then moved into, I'm sensitive to the time, I just want to make sure I get through the main points here, is the community leaders. And we both had a network of community leaders, which is Garrett of the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, and then Melinda Chase from the Travel Liaisons up at the Alaska Climate Science Center, and Anae Begay from the work she's been doing in Alaska Fairbanks, but also she represented the work she's doing in Arizona, and then Oliver from Somerville, Massachusetts. And I think that it was very clear that community leaders would very much value collaborating with our enterprises and our programs and our activities to accelerate and support their climate actions. The details we'll get in the report. Everyone will benefit from this, but I think that we confirmed what we knew from a year ago in Utah, that this is actually a very central and important expansion of our work. Carrie McDougall for the Office of Education at NOAA was there, and the grants that they've just released another set of 9 grants on community resilience with education focused. And we're seeing the power of that local climate action leader and education really being an important partnership that is new in the field. So, and Anae was powerful, direct, and she had a lot of really important things to say and for us to hear. So I would encourage you to explore that. It was not videotaped, so unfortunately, for only those who were in the room could hear what she said. Well, maybe we'll ask her to join us. I would think that would really be important for us. Melinda was sitting to her left is in the brown shirt was also important. And I think another thing for us to remember is that she felt like it was challenging for her to speak to us, because it's not her normal pathway to come down into a city and speak on these matters, but she did it she found it was very important to share with what she had to say. So expanding and growing the field, and that's Marta's asking another question, and I think that in this one, but everyone there was really actively trying to find out what the value they could bring to helping communities. But then the side conversations where you have Garrett and Oliver talking with Billy Spitzer, and that's Bernadette from Climate Matters and Christiana from Climate Education Partners in San Diego. That's a powerful, those 5 people talking, I am confident will yield a very important advancement between No Matters, CEP, USDN, and a city member. Just think about the power and potential if we were able to focus those programs in very intentional ways in that community. That's a real possibility. So, and then we added something here with a lightning round. Now, if you look at the members of this lightning round, they had 4 minutes to speak, only 4. Very, very specific time limit. But notice the names. Some of these people like Billy Spitzer, Carrie Stanton, Jen Kretzer, Rev Anderson, but some of them you don't. Ann Reed from NCSE, really important work that they're doing in communities where it's hard to teach climate change because they're fossil fuel extractive communities. But then Daisy, who is actually, it says Lauren and Stephanie of Grid Alternatives, actually Daisy came. I'll show you a picture of her in a second, and Cyan from SEI, those 2 people are new, but really powerful workforce development and education programs that are both domestically and internationally that's, I don't know if many people know about, but really important expansion of our community potential. So all of this is available on the website. If you have the links to the slides, you should. The website is embedded in the notes. But then the one thing we did, the interns and I did with at least 6 programs, was we created case studies. And we revised the case study models intentionally with our facilitator to really ensure when you have a program that is actually helping a community implement their climate actions, not potentially, but actually, and valued, we wrote up 6. And the first one there is from Michelle Bedreas, Mika Estrada, and their team in San Diego. where they were explicitly working on key influentials in San Diego and educating them through the NSF Climate Change Education Partnership grants. And not everybody knows that story, but there's a transferable model for communities in Washington State, New York, you name it, or even internationally. But it's if it's not there, it's important that it be there. So they're the 6. They're all available to you if you want to read them. But I think that this is a list that could grow. If anybody has something that they want to develop with us and expand using the same template, just let me know. I think that these are targeted for decision makers and influentials in communities because, whether it's Solar One's work in New York City or SEI's work in San Rafael, California, or grid alternatives, and you name it, but the details are there, but not everyone is aware of why education is important to communities. So this is one example I pulled from the Solar One program, and I am going to invite Sarah Pigeon from Solar One to present to us. But the key thing there is the pull quotes that we got for every one of these. We got multiple pull quotes, and the one here is Meredith McDermott. And but this idea of somebody who is that there is a director of sustainability for the New York Department of Education, a really important position, but she is seeing the connection between what the mayor's office is trying to do and education is able to do through this kind of program, and that's an important thing. The first paragraph is a central important paragraph. We put a lot of time into getting those paragraphs right, but the promise or the instance of where education is actually helping community resilience and or a transition to a low carbon economy valued by a community leader is really what we were going for. And we found so far 6. We know there's more. We know there's many more, but we just have only had the time to do 6. And in the lightning round, you see there, you had 9 people presenting all 4 minutes, and it worked. It was really impressive. But then, the surprise, for most of us was this woman, Daisy Mayer, from the Grid Alternatives Bay Area office, again, Grid Alternatives, and she just nailed why education is central to this emerging workforce. Really impressive, and I hope that we will able to get Daisy and her team to come to the Clean Network in a subsequent call later this fall, because again, it's about growing the community of practice and deepening these new strategies. So Cyan from SEI, really important work that they're doing. So after they did their 4-minute presentations, they went to a table and other people joined them. Every one of these side conversations was just riddled with detailed, actionable learning, and that doesn't happen too often, which I was really impressed with. So then the final panel was something we knew that we needed to explore, which is this the funding in our community is just not right. And if we had $10 billion to spend, sure, we could spend it. If we had, but still, that's not coming anytime soon. That's not a realistic approach. And how would we spend it? We don't even have a plan. But it is clear that there is not a funder in the landscape for us who really takes innovation and deploys it across as proven to be effective, whether it's across the country or at the national scale or whatever. The funders don't have a common understanding of who funds scale, how we fund scale, what would actually work. So Carrie McDougall, Jason Morris are 2 funders, and then Guy Williams is a partner of ours that's been working in Detroit on implementing climate action and environmental justice work for a very long time, and he spoke very eloquently about the challenges in communities like Detroit for sustaining work and the challenges that people who are running these programs to sustaining the funding base to make it work across decades, sorry, not centuries, decades. Guy's not that old. But this was an important expansion, right? To have the 3 people who are centrally focused on funding, so really sitting down and talking through. I was the moderator, and exploring this, and the details really mattered. And what Guy did was he opened up, I'm sorry, not Guy, Jason, Pisces Foundation. How do we coalesce a community, this massive enterprise of education communities, all forms of education, around this emerging strategy to make progress in ways that are effective and transformational and focused? How do we do that? And the ideas were floated. Dale Scowcroft here is exploring that some. But I think that what we heard was we need a community field approach, and we need to think very creatively. So it's a challenge that we still sit with. We don't have an answer to that, so we will carry that forward. They're putting some money on the street to kind of explore that. I think that those of us who are interested in that could go there. But I think one thing that we learned out of Utah, and again it was affirmed last week in our event and others, was that when you approach community leaders and business leaders with education, we have challenges in our community that you would like help with, that doesn't really resonate with them. But when we listen to what the challenges they're having with implementing and sustaining climate actions, then we can actually transform what we do into helpful service. And some of the things that we're starting to see is this idea of public will. Who carries and builds public will on this issue? Because it's going to be decades of work. One thing that is also showing up is making solutions visible is something that I alluded to with Starbucks in the very beginning of this talk. But that, if you go through the list of all the businesses who laid out very ambitious actions, very few people know about that other than the press release. The details of their commitment and their progress, very, very hard to see. And yet if it connects to social will, if we can't see it, how do we know we're making progress? It's really hard. And then the last one is building the social capacity needed to support communities in this transition. We also alluded to that with the governor of New Jersey, but there's a lot of other social capacity work. But notice that the word education was never used in those bold words, because it confuses most of the people we're talking to as opposed to illustrates or illuminates. So anyway, I think that if community leaders are going to sustain their work and private sector are going to sustain their climate actions, they're going to need us to work differently, and they're going to need a community that is on board with that sustained work. So there was another event, the 12th, and I'm just going to close this out really quickly because I don't want to take all the time just yammering on here. But this other event that was coordinated by the University of California, Cal EPA, Leonardo DiCaprio, KQED, SEI, and 10 Strands was also another day-long meeting, very important meeting. A lot of advances were done there, but we also had a panel that I was the moderator on with Chris Castro, who directs sustainability for Orlando, Florida. And they are already, it's of the 200 plus sustainability directors, he's like one of the only ones that is actively working with higher education and education partners in order to help their community transition. And I think that those types of people that we talked with Garrett and Oliver in our event, and then Chris in this event, are really bold thinkers, and they should be our partners in the work we do, because they need us just as much as we need them. So I would just encourage us all to continue exploring that further. And then finally, an event that Miro, who is leading with Mark McCaffrey, the ECOS community, there was a funders event focused on youth programming and philanthropy on the 14th. And, we continue to explore impact investments and blockchain technology. It was really very expansive in the approach, but there's innovation is what I was gaining here. And they're really starting to see the value of the work we do, whether that transitions into investments and support, time will tell. But I think that Miro is trying to work in Europe and also internationally like we are clean in the United States. So we need to continue to keep those dialogues active and growing. And I just want to call out the Gina, Silas, and Haley. I did that from left to right. Our 3 interns that we could not have achieved what we did here. This is a picture of one of the receptions of the Exploratorium, the evening of the 11th. But we just have to call out that young students, they're actually older students, but young people, young professionals are really critical to our success, and they did an amazing job for us. And they continue to just step up and say, what else do you need? And that's very appreciated. So at the summit, it was transformational, exhausting, and lots of possibilities for going forward. And so the last thing I just want to leave you with is this workshop report will be coming when the team of us, small team, Gail, Andrea, myself, and the facilitator will be working on it. Hopefully we'll have it done soon, but you can check out the linked Impact Summit report from last year. A lot of important work that you may not be aware of is in there, and we're using the same template, same structure. We'll be flowing it into there, and the link for the website and the case studies is above that at the Accelerating Climate Action Workshop. So I don't want to just keep on going, so I'm going to stop there. That's actually the end of my slides. I did that fast. I said a lot. So if there are questions or further reflections for those who were there as well, I'm very open to that. So let's go there now. Come on.
Wow, Frank, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for the summary. And look at the number of participants. It's exciting to see so many people on the call.
Yeah. Well, I sent this to everyone who attended the workshop on the 11th, plus some of the leaders from the event on the 12th, and Miro from the event on the 14th. So yeah, no, I mean, but I think in Clean, we've always known we need to grow the community. The community only becomes more valuable as it grows.
Hi, Frank. This is Pat Harcourt. Hope you're doing great.
I am. Okay.
I was thinking that I believe that Clean is the appropriate network to address the needs that you out and to keep the momentum going forward. Is that appropriate to say that the people and the groups that are in the Clean network are the appropriate that's the appropriate venue for us to gather and move forward?
Pat, my answer is yes. I mean, it's a shared answer, right? So, but there's nothing like Clean. In fact, there are other countries who are doing really bold and ambitious work. Europe is doing a ton, but they don't have something like Clean. So we're an anomaly in the world. But turns out that it's very powerful and important. So sustaining it, investing in it, and strategically growing it, I think is absolutely where I see it. But I mean, if others feel otherwise, and there's something else that we're missing, I'm always open to hearing that.
So Frank, this is Gail. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Gail.
And good afternoon, everybody on the call. I'll just jump in and give my 2 cents on Pat's question. I think that the Clean Network can continue to play a very important role for many folks that are engaged in climate change education. As Frank mentioned, many of the folks we had in the room from the education side may not be current members of Clean, and I know Frank is great about networking and connecting people, and I think that's a great way to grow the network. In terms of the whole community, the multi-sector community, I don't think Clean is really the right organization to be that network. We really do need a network that is more focused on education, because we have our own needs and a community that has to continue to focus on the education side of the fence. However, in terms of networking policymakers and business leaders and community leaders and education professionals and climate scientists, I think one of the needs that we've identified as the broad climate change community is we need a network of networks. And I think if we can manage to establish that over the next year or two, Clean would certainly be the right network to represent the education sector.
Gail, I have full support for what you just said, because I think that a lot of those members that you're alluding to are already networked in their own networks, but the
Correct.
bridging function between networks is really not in place at all. And nor do I think that Clean would be best positioned to do that. I mean, we're already stretched as we are.
Mhm.
Right. I would like to say, Frank, that, and it also carries over to what Gail was suggesting. I think it would be fabulous to have some of the representatives of these other communities do telecons for us so that we can see the synergies that exist between Clean and the other communities. So it reinforces the synergy, the network of network ideas, but maintains Clean as an education organization. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I also see that Kathy put something in the chat there to look at on connecting to labor unions.
Well, in fact, Trumka, I don't remember his first name, who is the head of the AFL-CIO, spoke on the 12th. And he made the point that if you just shut down coal, refineries, and you don't do anything for all the people who work there and rely on those industries, you're going to be building a lot of resistance. And these are families and communities that need help. I think that if we didn't capture the focus on how education and workforce connect, that's a very important structure to approach. But who makes those investments? Who designs those programs? Who graduates people who have one set of skills and now have a new set of skills that are actually going to work in the new marketplace? I've heard people say we stink at transitions. If we stink at this one, I think we're gonna have a lot of people who are going to be having a harder time than we could. So I heard him loud and clear. He didn't really call out education, but he really set the stage for education. And Kathy, I see. I'll read your point very carefully, but I think you're spot on. Thank you.
Jim Callahan here. First off, it was a fantastic event on Tuesday, and your presentation well reflected it. Thank you, Frank, on both counts. Absolutely, on the thing of the power of, if you're leaving off education, how much you're missing, and maybe referring even to Don on labor unions and so on. Right at GCAS at the Moscone Center, you could see this difference if one looked. If education was not brought to the table, it was all over the place and the connection wasn't there. So on the one hand, you had trade people by the thousands working on that convention center and across the street doing it. In California, there's been a tremendous amount of education by labor unions and contractors, for instance, because you have to learn how to build energy efficient. They're paying people $100 an hour, right? And they can't get enough people, right? These programs, whether it is directly working with Clean or, as you're bringing up, Gail, perhaps a network of bridges, those are programs we can work with. I know them well. We can connect with them. Down the block, at the same time GCAS is going on, is the open house of this fantastic program called Pacific Energy Center, which is training more on the professional level, architects and engineers and so on. They were having their open house, and I went to that because I'm part of that network. So there are these, and what I'm getting at is maybe the governor can take credit for doing GCAS and these wonderful things, but California would never have made the achievements it has so far without those two programs in particular. Just even the electricians, the mechanical people, the engineers, the way we have saved energy and made these things are with these education programs. So anyway, it's a great connection road. I mentioned another one of another of the thing when there's a time, maybe on another call or something, but the international connections. Thank you, Mark Basnich. I think you're in on this call too. It was great connecting with Pierre and Lydie from the Office of Climate Education in Paris. If there's that international connection at some point. I mean, again, not to overstretch the whole thing, but the bridging. Thank you, Frank, for bringing up, where do we make connections and bridging where appropriate. So.
Absolutely, Jim. Thank you. Other points or reflections or questions?
Just a quick note of thanks. This is Mark Benage. Thanks, Jim, for calling me out. It was my first encounter with the Clean Network. I'm super excited about the work you're doing. I've been in education for a really long time, but I just want to say I love the cross-sector approach that that the day took, and my mind is still spinning with a lot of work. The nonprofit I have is, I can see a good road ahead for the work we're doing. So thank you.
Mark, since you're just new to us, can you say what your organization you're with?
Yeah, sorry, it's a small nonprofit. We're here actually in the Bay Area. A lot of the work, it's called Make Knowledge, and it's a lot of the work we've done is on, before this point, has been on creating equitable STEM pathways for kids. So making sure that kids, underrepresented kids and girls are not kicked off of STEM pathways prematurely, and including through, CTE programs and workforce stuff. So looking holistically at those pathways and bringing people from across the ecosystem together. So then we did some separate work, as Jim mentioned. We had long story short, we had some separate, more recent climate work, and that's where those international partners have come in.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for joining us. Do we have other points that want to be raised? So, I mean, one thing. I'll follow Don. I'm going to give you guys more think time, pause time. All right, that's about as much as I can give. Look, I feel like we are opening up a new strategic approach, really evolving. And I think what with the support that Gail, you provided through the Climate Change Education Partners Alliance, I think between the summit last year and the summit and the workshop this year, I think we solidified that there's tremendous power in this new direction. I think it's going to, it'll be interesting how the way forward opens up as to how we use that opportunity as a community. Next steps are going to be really important, but I'm very encouraged by what we're learning and getting ready for the massive work that's coming our way. But it's important work, so I'm very encouraged. A little tired, but very encouraged. And I also want to explicitly, Gail, call out a great thanks for the work you've done in our field. I know that the NSF money is starting to run to its end state, but I think the Climate Change Education Partners grants, whether it's Noki, CEP, Made Clear, Polar, all have done really important work for the rest of us need to really dig in and learn as much as we can. I was able to share Noki with the Aquarium of the Bay just the next day. And not everybody knows the power of what we've learned in our communities. So I think that it's a very strong impulse for Clean to continue to do better work to identify, share, promote, connect. So, Don, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Good stuff, good discussion, and it's about time to wrap it up. Unless there are any other questions or announcements, or all right. Well, tune in again next week. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Thanks, Don. Thanks
Yep.
all.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Don.
So again, Frank, really wonderful presentation. I'll check out too.
All right. Hey, thank you. I was just trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to turn it off.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, Jim, I think there's a lot of potential. We'll have to explore what the next steps are. But thank you for your time.
And we're not going anywhere. So whenever the time is right on everything. So.
Or maybe we're actually going somewhere and we're just working
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry. It's being patient.